Hey Bookish Babes, and welcome to the 12 Days of Vlogmas, Day 9. For those that are new around here, I'm Rainy Barton. I teach music and I also love reading books. All types of thriller and horror, but I also read fantasy, romance, sci-fi, nonfiction, I don't know, all these other genres. And so if you're interested in that, please like and subscribe to this channel in order to help my channel grow. If you're new around here or you've missed a couple of days of Vlogmas, I'm doing the 12 Days of Vlogmas. We are currently on day 9. Don't you worry, I've put the playlist down below so that you can check out the other days in case you have missed stuff. And we are in the middle of my 4-part series where I talk about my most surprising books of the year, my most disappointing, my worst books, and my best books. And we've already talked about most surprising and most disappointing. Today we are talking about the worst books that I read in 2022, and I have a list for you. Some are not nearly as bad as others, and so we're going to go backwards from like my least of the, I guess my best of the worst to my worst of the worst. And I'm sure everybody knows what my worst of the worst is before already because I've said it multiple times in other videos. And I figured I'd also share my DNFs because I haven't DNF'd that many books this year. And so I'll share like the DNFs first and then we'll go to my worst books and then move on from there. So here we go. Before I get to this list, I just want to say that these are my opinions. They are my simple opinions. They do not mean anything to anybody else except for me. So if you're an author, I highly recommend not watching this because this is just me trash talking books. But also, if you are watching this, just know this does not mean you shouldn't read these books. If you liked these books, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that they found their community and they found the person that was supposed to enjoy them. It just was not me. So if that is you, please don't get offended. Just know that this is my opinion. This is what I thought of these books, and that everybody has different opinions, and that is why reading is so cool. If we all loved reading the same books, that would not be fun at all. So please keep that in mind as we get to my worst books list. So I DNF'd only 6 books this year, and that is actually a lot for me considering I didn't used to DNF books before this year. So I'm very proud of myself in that regard that I'm actually starting to allow myself to DNF books. The first book I DNF'd is Where They Found Her by Kimberly McCreight. This was for the January book troop pick for Gabby Reads. And I got to probably about, I don't know, 80 pages in, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I thought it was boring. It was just not fun, and I just hated it. So I didn't feel, and then I skipped to the end to see what the twist was, and I thought it was just so ridiculous and so stupid, and so I just am glad that I didn't bother finishing this book. Then I started to read The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin, which is a duology. It's the first in a duology because I was going to do Booked and Busy's book clubs this year. And then I just learned she reads too much of high fantasy for me. But even she said that this book was awful and she only finished it because it was for her book club. I only got 30 pages into this and I was just like, this is not for me. Like, I could care less what's going on in this world. And I've heard this is actually the worst of N.K. Jemisin's like books. So I don't feel too bad for DNFing this one either. Then I DNF'd in April All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris. This was for Books and Lala's Literally Dead book club. And I just was not into this. It's a legal thriller and it just was not that interesting to me. I probably read about 60% of this book when I DNF'd, and I felt bad DNFing that late in because I was like, couldn't you just finish this book? But like, why would I persevere when I just clearly was not enjoying it? And I didn't even think the end was that good. I'm sad that I didn't enjoy this. Would I try again from this author? Maybe, but like maybe her writing just isn't for me. Then I DNF'd and I don't have this book and my library doesn't have this book, and you better believe I was not going to buy this book again because I hated it that much. The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. And yes, I understand I probably should have never bought that book because like I just have heard I wasn't going to like it. And when Kayla really loves a book, makes it one of her top of the year, I have to be wary of that because her favorite book from last year was My Heart is a Chainsaw, and I think that book should burn and die. It's the same for this. This book made no sense. It was like about this character and he's like writing his like life story or something, and he has his friend who's annotating in between, and it just had a lot of back and forth, and it was really boring and confusing, and I didn't understand what I was reading, and the whole entire time I was like, why am I reading this? I'm gonna keep trying. I got to about 35% and I just gave up, and I hate that book, and it's probably the worst of the DNF books. And if I had finished it, it probably would have been my worst book of the year, but I could not bring myself to finish it in good faith. Then I DNF'd one of Haley's favorite books from when she was younger. I was going to do a Haley reading vlog, and I still am going to, but I could not get myselth through We Were Liars. And I think it's just because of the age, honestly, because this is very YA, and it just wasn't doing anything for me. And it was kind of boring, and I just didn't care for it. I do think the twist is very good, and I'm very shocked by it. My sisters told me, basically, because I just didn't want to finish the book. But that didn't convince me enough to stick around to read the rest. And then the last book I DNF'd in September that led to my most massive reading slump of the year was It by Stephen King. Will I read this ever again? I do not know. I want to say this was a soft DNF, but honestly it might have just been a hard DNF and I should get rid of this book because I could not bear to get myself through it. It just was abysmal, and I'm sorry that I'm saying that. So those were all of the books that I DNF'd. I only DNF'd 6 books. So now we're going to move on to my worst reads of the year, and I have 11 books for you. All of these have gotten 2.5 stars to 1. So I did not enjoy them at all. In the 11th spot, and I almost put this in my most disappointing books of the year, but I really did not enjoy it. And I'm sad I didn't enjoy it. So it's the worst read. 11. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And I already know that people are going to come at me and go, how can this be on your worst reads of the year? This is a phenomenal book. And I wish I agreed with you. Now, it is the only one that got a 2.5 star for me out of this list. But it was not for me. I mean, I loved the premise about, like, this old lady book club that, like, gets charmed by, like, this new, young, handsome man who's, like, supposedly a vampire, and all the stuff starts going down, and, like, children are disappearing around the town and whatnot. But the vampire shit didn't even happen until, like, 65% through. It was very boring. It was very disgusting. He writes, like, disgusting horror, like cockroach and rat type crap, and that is just not for me. And I thought it was nasty, and I honestly should have DNF'd this book, but I just wanted to finish so that I could say I read this book. And I'm very sad because I loved the final support group by him, the final girls support group. I loved that book, and I did not like this book. And I'm still very sad that I didn't. And it just was not for me. Then going to number 10, we do have to go with a Riley Sager, and that is Survive the Night. I had a lot of fun with this book, I will say. But the reason it is this low is because I cannot get on board with what happened at the end, honestly. So if you don't know what this one is about by now, it's about Charlie, who her best friend was murdered by the campus killer in college, so she decides to, like, get a ride home from someone, a random stranger she doesn't know named Josh, and over the night she realizes she's probably in the car with the campus killer, and it's just, like, a fight to survive the night, hence the title, Survive the Night. And this book was wild. The twist was ridiculous. The ending is garbage. Like, I kid you not, I cannot get on board with this. And I just did not enjoy this book even a little bit. And while the vibes were there, and I thought it was, like, a fun ride, and I read through it super quick, like, I cannot condone that this is a good book because it is not a good book. So if you're looking for a good book, this is not one I recommend. But it was a time. It was a time. Coming in at number 9 is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I enjoyed this one less than Survive the Night because we are going down to, like, my least favorite, so we're starting to get into, like, my worst books. And this one is about Casey Fletcher, who is an alcoholic, like a widowed actress who her husband was drowned in this lake that they used to live at, and she goes there anyway. I don't know why, to, like, get out of the spotlight, and she sees, it's like woman in the window thing. She sees, like, something happen across the lake, and this girl disappear, and she thinks the husband did it, and she has to solve it, but she's an unreliable narrator, huge alcoholic, all this crap. And I didn't like the twist. I really hated the twist. I rant about it in a reading vlog that I have. I can't remember which one. I'll link it down below if I can remember. But I was not expecting the twist, and then the end was just stupid, and I don't understand. There were a lot of plot holes that did not add up for me, plus, like, the number of times that they have to talk about her having a bourbon in her hand is just insurmountable. And it was just, I feel like this was sloppy. I feel like this was written really quickly. He just needed to get another book out, and so he was just trying to do his thing and get stuff out as quickly as possible. However, that did not work for me, and I'm very sad. So I just wish that this had gone another way, but unfortunately we cannot change it. And I'm still going to pick up his next book, the only one's left, but it better be better than this. I'm just saying. Then we get to number 8, and I am very sad also that I didn't like this either, but it was just awful. And that is Hide by Kirsten White. I read this for Kayla's Books and Lala's Literally Dead book club, I think in, like, September or something like that. And it is a high-stakes hide-and-seek competition that turns deadly inside this abandoned theme park. And that plot twist, or that plot, sounds fantastic. Like, nothing could go wrong, right? Well, she was able to ruin this. First off, the characters read completely YA, and this is supposed to be an adult novel, and I could not stand any of our characters. Like, there's maybe one character that I enjoyed, and there's, like, 12 characters, and they're all getting killed off. Like, they have to hide, and if they're found, like, the first 2 found for the night are, like, killed by, like, whatever. But they don't realize that that's what's going to happen to them. And What happened in this book was just ridiculous and dumb, and it was poorly executed, and the characters were awful, and this whole thing was just one big dumpster fire. And I did not enjoy it, but I read it in one day because I wanted to read it for the review, because it is only a little over 200 pages, but it was not good. And I don't know if I'll read anything else by her, because I had, like, the worst time reading this. And I honestly am very sad that I did not enjoy this, because, like, it has a great plot, and it was just executed so poorly. And I would love to see this done in a different way. And because this really would be a great plot to do. So maybe someone will do it better. Coming in at number 7, which I really didn't enjoy, is The Body in Question by Jill Cement. And I read this book for my local book club's book club. And I don't know who the hell picked this. Actually, I do know. And we all know that she picks weird books. I love her, but still. This one it takes place in Central Florida, which I think is why she picked it. Because it takes place actually in my hometown. And it is a sensational murder trial set in a courthouse more Soviet than Le Corbusier. A rich white teenage girl, a twin, on trial for murdering her toddler brother. And then 2 of the jurors, Hannah, a married 52-year-old former Rolling Stone and Interview magazine photographer of rock stars and socialites, and Graham, a 42-year-old anatomy professor, are both sequestered along with other jurors. And as the details of the crime are revealed during a string of days and courtroom hours, and the nights played out in a series of court-financed meals at Outback and Red Lobster, they fall into an affair, keeping their oaths as jurors never to discuss the trial. During deliberations, the lovers learn they're on opposing sides of the case. Suddenly, they look at each other through an altogether different lens as things become more complicated. When they find out their fellow jurors are wives to their affair. After the verdict, she returns home to her much older husband and resumes her life, but the case is exploding again, and the public's outrage is growing at a jury that seems to have convicted the wrong twin. When the judge receives an anonymous handwritten letter, she threatens to release the names of all the jurors, and Hannah's one last dalliance before she gets too old takes on profoundly personal and moral consequences. So anyway, so this book didn't nearly dive into the trial nearly as much as I would have cared. It more focused on their stupid affair. And for me, I was just mad at this girl the whole time, because I was like, yeah, your man is way older than you. Like, I think she has like an 80-year-old like husband or something like that. But like, you married him through sickness and health, so like, why are you just like, oh, well, I'm sequestered, I'm just gonna hook up with this dude? And like, it didn't make sense, because he loves her and he treats her well, and I just don't understand it. And then a lot of it focused on like the after and like the whole stuff of the affair. And I could give a rat's booty about the affair. If we're being honest, I didn't care about the affair. And so I thought this book was boring. And the only reason I finished it is because it's a 4-hour audiobook, and I listened to it on audio because I didn't dare pick this up, and I read it the day of the book club. But I hated it. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was dumb, and I will never read anything by her ever again. Number 6, which I don't have a copy of. I donated mine, and I guess I forgot to pick it up from the library. Is The Ghost Bride by Yongtse Chu. And I was very excited for this one because of Noelle Gallagher. And as we have learned by now, I love her, but this one was recommended to me by Reagan from Peru's Projects. And I never know what to expect with her either, because like, I'm not a big fantasy person. And this one was supposed to be about a girl that she dies. And this girl that is going to be a ghost bride because her family needs to be married to be rich to like this other family. And a ghost bride, it means that the person is dead, and that she's going to be married to them anyway. And so it's like the spooky crap. But she doesn't want to be married to a ghost. And so she's trying to like get rid of that. And then all this crazy stuff happens. And I lost interest 30% in. It was boring. I didn't understand what was going on. It was confusing. There were a lot of characters I didn't care for. I couldn't really root for any of the characters. I honestly don't know why I finished this. I think because I was just so invested in seeing like where else this crazy plot could go, because this plot got crazy. But I honestly can't tell you much more than that, because I don't remember much more than that, because I really just didn't care for this book. Like, it was just middle of the road, and I read it, it happened, it sucked type deal. Then coming in at number 5, which I really couldn't stand, this book is The Island by Adrian McKinty. And I know that this is on some people's best books of the year, but it could not do that for me. I couldn't understand how it could be on anybody's best list of the year. But this one follows a girl named Heather Baxter who marries Tom, this widowed doctor that has 2 kids, and they're going to go on a vacation overseas so that he can hopefully get the kids to like the girl a lot more, their new mom. They discover this remote island, and they end up setting foot on the island that's like run by Aboriginals, and they accidentally hit one and I think kill one. And so it's basically like, what happens? Are they going to be able to get off this island, or are they going to die because they killed an Aboriginal on the island? And it follows the wife, and the audiobook I thought was annoying. and I thought the characters and the voices were annoying. I do like that it had actual like gunshots and stuff like that and like rain and whatnot, so the audiobook is cool in that regard. But it's gonna be an original Hulu series soon. Sad day for that. But I didn't like the whole concept of like how the Aboriginals were portrayed in this, and like there's like this whole like I guess not afterword, or yeah, whatever you say at the end that like the author says, where he explains how he wrote this, and this made me like it like way less. And I just didn't really like what he said in the beginning either as to why he wrote this, like about the Aboriginal peoples. I just think he was a white character that was trying to write about people other than him, and he didn't do a very good job at it. And I just thought it kind of felt like that the entire time. And I thought the plot was so outlandish. I hated the wife. I could not care for her at all. She felt very like weak and whiny and helpless the whole entire time, and it was just crazy. And I finished it honestly because of how wild it was, but I did not enjoy even a minute of this, so it is what it is. Then we come in at number 4, which I'm not surprised because last year he was my least favorite author, and he's still on this list, with Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I think I am slowly learning that Stephen Graham Jones is just not my person, even in a short little novella. And this one is about a group of friends that they think it'd be a funny joke to bring a mannequin into a theater, but then the mannequin comes to life and starts killing people. And I am not going to lie. About the first 40 pages, I was like, wow, this writing is really taken off for me. Maybe this is going to be a book that I enjoy. And then it just got weird, and there was a plot twist, and I was like, this is stupid. I don't agree with it. And then the writing got weird, and I started not understanding what was going on, because that is what tends to happen when I read Stephen Graham Jones books, is that I don't understand what's going on after a certain point. And then it just started getting worse and worse and worse, and I just thought the ending was not that great, and it was just a whatever read to me. And I figure if I can't even enjoy his novellas, why am I still trying with him? He's just not the author for me, and I should know that and stop giving him bad reviews, but it is what it is. Coming in at number 3 is one that I read very recently, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. And I know that this is going to be a controversial topic, because I just talked to a friend last night who gave this book 5 stars and loved it, and I hated it and gave it 2 stars. It is about Connell and Marianne. They grow up in the same town. Connell's popular, Marianne's not, but she's rich and he's not. But they strike up a conversation and they have a relationship, and over the next couple of years, it's just like following their relationship, but like their weird, twisted, torrid relationship, because like he can't be with her because he's like embarrassed of her, but also she's the only one that really gets him, and she's just kind of waiting around for him throughout this whole period. First off, there's no quotation marks in this, and that was awful, and that alone made me not love it. But really, what I couldn't get is why this girl was so hell-bent on trying to stay in relationship with this man when he truly treated her like crap, didn't care about her unless he absolutely needed her, and was like in like the bottom of lows for him. And a lot of people relate to this and say this is like relationships that I've been in. And if that is you, then I feel really bad, and I also understand why you could appreciate this book. But for me, I was just like, I don't understand why you would wait around for him. He is garbage. He is awful. I don't understand what about him is so appealing that you couldn't find someone that actually will treat you well and like gives a damn about you. And so, and plus, it was literally just about their relationship, which I get. That's what the book is about. But like, I don't know, 280 pages about this relationship was just not entertaining to me at all. But I wanted to finish it because it was a short audiobook. But like, I don't get the hype. And I have her other 2 books, and I probably will still read them because I want to know more about Sally Rooney and her writing. But like, this was not it, fam. This was not it. Then coming in at the number 2 slot, which I got rid of and my library didn't have, and I was not going to buy it again, is Dear Laura by Gemma Amor. I read that for a vlog that never got published, but it was reading short horror novellas. And that one is about this girl that when she is young, she receives a letter from someone basically saying her best friend is murdered or missing and never found. And this guy writes a letter to her and says, I know where your friend is. If you do a task for me, I will give you a clue as to where they are. And so every year he gives her a clue, and the clues get more and more weird. Like she has to like put stuff outside of her house, like her underwear that she's slept in, and like all this other stuff, like a tooth and all this weird crap. And as the years go on, she just keeps getting haunted by this guy, and then she ends up confronting him. And the whole reason I hated this book is because I thought the main character was stupid. If you are giving a murderer or whoever this weird creepy person is that you don't know who it is, all this stuff and putting it out on your yard for them to get. Why are you not doing a stakeout to catch this person in action? Why are you just allowing them to come onto your front steps and just go away and continue to haunt you? I don't understand. I feel like this character kind of just let this guy do whatever he wanted, and I don't understand why. Like, it just seemed stupid. So I just couldn't get behind it, and the end was just stupid and wrapped up terribly. Like, it just felt very rushed, and I don't know, but this book really angered me. I thought this main character was just one of the stupidest characters I've ever read from, and I just could not get on board with her and her decision-making, like, even a little. And then, the creme de la creme, the #1 worst book I read this year. 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. Are you surprised? If you are, you don't listen to my channel a lot. This is an And Then There Were None retelling, but really it's just a copy-paste shitty version of And Then There Were None, if we are being realistic. And it's 9 strangers. They receive a list with their names in the mail. They don't know what it means, and then all of a sudden they start getting killed off one by one. And so there is one FBI agent who is on the list who's like, I'm going to solve this entire thing. And it is literally, like literally almost exactly a copy-paste, and it's just not good. And the deaths were whatever. Oh, I guess that's where my mom got in this book. I'll have to give this back to her. The deaths are whatever, and I just didn't care for any of them. But what got me is that he ruins the whole And Then There Were None. Like I said, in my most disappointing books of the year, that is why I did not enjoy And Then There Were None. He literally gives a play-by-play, explains it all, what the title used to be, and uses the N-word in here 2 times. Not necessary at all. Why you gotta do that? I don't know why that had to be part of your content, and why your editors thought it was a smart idea to use the N-word. You don't need it in here. It did not elaborate the plot. It didn't help enhance it. And then you have to ruin it and say who the character is and what they did, and like you're doing that as a setup to like explain the end of this. And like, no ruining books, even if they were from the 20s. I'm sorry. I'm not okay with that. That is a classic. It is Miss Christie. That is offensive, and I am mad. I'm also not here for a very long villainous like epilogue or monologue where you explain your whole why of why you did this and how it all came to be. Like this letter that the like killer leaves at the end is like 12 pages long, takes forever and ever to read, and I just don't care about that. I think that it should be revealed slowly throughout the book. I don't care to hear your whole monologue at the end. If you're having to explain the entire thing at the end, then you obviously didn't write this well enough to set it up to where we could figure it out without you having to write a 12-page monologue. Like, I kid you not, this letter is 5 ever long. Like, look, it just goes on. Here it goes. Where does it start? It goes on and on and on and on and on and on. It's forever long. This book is awful. I'm never reading a Peter Swanson again. Like, this did it for me. I could care less what he writes in the future. Plus, in 8 Perfect Murders, he ruins 8 books as well. And yes, they are a lot older books, but like, I don't care. If they're still in the public domain, and people are still reading them, and people are still enjoying them, why do you think that it's okay to get off your high horse and ruin them for others? I'm very heated about this book. It's awful. And with that, that concludes my 11 worst reads of the year. Like I said before, this is just my opinion. You can love these books. We can have different opinions on these books. You do not have to come at me for this. Like, I obviously am going to love books that you probably hated, and that is okay. That is what makes reading so different, and I think that it's really great that we are able to come together and still share this space in a nice, open, creative way. And so with that, make sure to tune in tomorrow to day 10, where I will be talking about my 11 best books of the year and a couple honorable mentions, because I couldn't just not talk about some of these books. Like, I had a good reading year, so like, I want to talk about the books, you know? But with that, I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!